What's up, guys? Welcome to the Wholesalers Blueprint. This is episode number 2. I've got a really good friend of mine, Justin Purpero, here. We're going to talk a little bit about jumbo loans and what the market's doing there. Kind of a funny story. I met Justin through our daughters went to school together, and we ended up. I don't know if we first started just chatting through flag football practice. He was a coach. I was a coach. We had kind of run into each other at church and some other functions at school. But it's funny because living in Orange County, I grew up, I've been doing mortgage for a while, and I was in mortgage. I'm not really in it these days, but I didn't realize that I was talking to the JP, the guy who is known for jumbos all over Orange County. This dude is a legend in this space. And it was funny to kind of connect the dots. So I'm super honored to have you here. I'm super humbled, man, because in this space, man, it's one of those things where there are legends, and then there are the small potatoes, and you're one of those legends, bro. So it's an honor to be here, bro.
It's hard to be feeling like a legend with the market being as soft as it is. I mean, today we saw that mortgage applications are down 28-year lows. They haven't been this low in 28 years. So it's tough to have success in your mindset, but we're out here, we're plugging away, we're trying to make it happen. So I appreciate you having me on and excited.
Yeah, very cool, man. Well, for me, really what I'd love to know, and I know you and I have talked offline about this a little bit. When I first got into the business, it was day one. I got a lead list. It was literally a white piece of paper with it was like an Excel spreadsheet, but not even with the boxes. It was like a name and a phone number. And my team lead came to me and was like, okay, Johnny, just call these people and see if they want a reverse mortgage. And I was like, what the hell's a reverse mortgage? I'm like, I have no idea what I'm even talking about, but I started dialing, and that's how I got into this business. But I would love to know how you became the guy in the jumbo space in Orange County, bro.
Yeah. So long story short, I started in the mortgage business coming out of high school. I dabbled in junior college. That didn't work out for me. One of my best friends at the time, his dad owned a mortgage company. And he was in college, and he'd come down for the summer and make $300,000-$400,000 grand in 3 to 4 months. So he'd come in, he'd slay the phones, and he'd walk away. And I'm sitting here watching him do this, going, I got to get into this business. So basically, starting out at the mortgage company, I'm 19, 20 years old. And they basically hand you a stack of no sales. And this was back before we had really computers on our desks, right? That's how old we were getting. I'm 42 years old, but man, it feels like it was decades ago. We had stacks on our desk, and all they were old leads of people that they didn't put together. And my job was just to find the gold within the scraps. So I picked up the phone and I hammered all day long. It's all I did. And then I'd bring my deal to an underwriter. They'd give me some ideas on pricing. I'd go back to the customer and I'd sell the deal. I did that for 7-8 years in the broker channel. This was in 2001, and here comes the fall of the mortgage business, 2008, right? So 2008, I'm in the broker world. I've got a stack of clients that I'm looking to fund. I can't find a bank to close any of these deals. I literally had one customer. I brought him through underwriting. I got him to loan doc signing. That bank closed literally at signing. I brought him back to another bank. We put him through the whole process again. New appraisal, new underwriting. Got him to docs before the loan funded. That bank shut down as well. So that was a point in my career where I said, okay, I got to get to high ground. I was really seeing that the broker world was going away. Subprime was over. Negative amortized loans, which is a whole different subject, was over. And I'm like, okay, where can you do mortgages in this world? And I realized it was at the banks. Now, at the time, 2008, they weren't hiring kids that didn't go to college. If you were to get a job at the bank, you had to have a college degree. And so I was able to, again, I picked up the phone, cold called a sales manager at Chase Bank in Laguna Niguel. I said, hey, look, if you hire me, take a risk on me, I'm going to be your top guy. So I basically left the broker world, I was a young guy, so I didn't have a database. I didn't have, a past, book of business. I had nothing. All I had was the fact that I knew how to have good phone calls, and I was going to work harder than everyone. So I showed up to Chase on the first day, and I literally pulled out an old notebook that I had of phone numbers and names of people that I was keeping down to follow back up with, maybe a missed call, or, hey, they left me a voicemail. And it was just like literally a notebook of people. And I went through this day in, day out, making phone calls. I literally was calling friends and family. Hey, who do you know? Who do you know? Who do you know? And before you know it, I was outfunding everybody in that office. I was outfunding my sales manager. Everyone was tripping out because I was the youngest and I had no education, and I was just killing it.
Do you think, Justin, do you think that was just because of the tenacity on the phone, just like getting after it no matter what? Is that why you think you were performing so well?
At the time I was newly married. I was foreclosing on my house with my newlywed. My wife, Robin, who stuck by my side and stayed with me through that tough time. I mean, literally, we foreclosed on our house 2 months before we were getting married. And so I had to tell her, hey, listen, we're losing our house. And she could have walked at that point. We weren't married yet, and she stuck with me, and I'll never forget that. But at the end of the day, I had something to prove to myself and to my wife that I was going to make it happen, and I've always had, big dreams and aspirations. And there was one path for me, and it was hitting the phones and making money. That was every day. That's what I did to get ahead.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when you have no choice but to win, it's funny how you find a way, right? Like when the ships are burned and there's no path backwards, it's like I have one choice. And when you can, that's the thing. It's like, I feel like when you can identify that path and you're like, look, I know if I just do this one thing, the paychecks are coming behind it. And that's like the great separator. I feel like a lot of people, they can identify that one thing, but what ends up happening is instead of them saying, well, I'm going to do the one hard thing, I'm going to get on the phone, I'm going to call everybody, I'm going to get the no's, I'm going to hear all the, go after yourself, all the, all the things that we got to hear that on the other side of those terrible phone calls, that's where the money is, man. And you got to go through those. And I heard somebody say something, and I don't remember who this was, but said something like, what if it took 100 no's to make $1 million? Like, and this is obviously completely unrealistic in pretty much any space, but what if it took 100 no's? How excited would you be to get the first no? Yeah. And then how much more excited for the second no and the third no? And here's the thing. So what I have found just in working with loan officers and now kind of in the investing space, I can always tell who's going to win. So day one, when people start hitting the phones and they're making those calls, at the end of that day, there's two people, man. The very first person comes to me and tells me about all of the lousy calls they got. Oh, this person said this, and I talked to this person and they didn't like that. They give me all this negative stuff and they never come around to talk about anything good. This guy never wins. They never win ever, 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 because those no's, that's like a requirement, bro. Like that's going to happen. The guys who win are like your point, like, hey, I'm going to hammer the phones until I get that yes. And then those people, man, their perspective is so different. They show up and they say, hey, man, I talked to this guy. I don't know if it's a deal, but I think they might be interested. And there's like this little glimmer of like daylight in there. There's this little bit of hope. And then that little daylight that opens up and all of a sudden it turns into deals. And so I can always tell, and for sure, you must have been one of those guys.
Dude, 100%. My whole career. I mean, I've always been that way. It was always I had, every time I had a no, it was closer to a yes, right? And you'd be surprised, like the universe and God will come together and show you exactly who you need to talk to that day. Like I literally, you'll not even know what to say, and you just pick up that phone, you do that work, and you happen to, call her, and she was just thinking about calling the bank today to talk about refinancing. It's like you pick up the serendipitous things that happen that God puts in front of you, these things work out when you just do the actions. And I think, like to your point, I think people get caught up in all the other things that they can do, right? Like we're both subject to course takers, right? And we see all the people in subject to literally going through the process and hooking up all the different things that you can do, but they're not doing the work. They're not making the phone calls it takes
right.
to make the cheddar, right? So it's so funny.
The one thing, and it's funny because so I always I talk a lot about Joseph in the Bible, about how he was in prison for I think like 13 years or something, a really long time, and how I love his story because, and I don't know how much you know about my past, but in 2015, that was like maybe year 2008. We lost our house. I was 150,000 debt. I had nowhere to sleep. I had 2 little girls I had to feed. And, when you're a dad and you can't provide, there's no worse feeling than not being able to provide for your family and do these things. And I kind of, I don't know, joke about it now, but I would spend my holidays, like Christmas morning, the kids had everything. We made sure that they were able to, but my Christmas morning, I was in the bathroom crying, bro, because I couldn't buy nothing for my wife. That feeling is more, it's more the incentive behind that. Not having that feeling is so great. Like I never want that feeling again. But I also feel like going through those experiences are part of my Joseph story, right? So Joseph's in prison. One day he's literally in prison, and then the next day he's the second most powerful person in Egypt, right? And so I always say like overnight. But the thing is about Joseph that I love about his story is that he was always doing the work, planting the seeds, and putting God out there in front of people. And so because of that, he was rewarded this way. So kind of to your point, you never know when you're going to wake up, and today is going to be the day that this thing happens.
I totally agree. And that's that, when we were going through that was so hard. It's hard to this day to even think about that. It keeps me going. That was what, 15 years ago, 16 years ago. And the pain of that still, it motivates me to get up and get things going. And I think when you look at the people that hit the phones hard and work really hard and have work ethics, they've hit the bottom. Yeah. Sometimes it takes that for people to drive them forward. It's a shame because, there's a lot of good talent out there that they're just not utilizing it until they get faced with the sucker punch and they got to go get to work. So
do you think when you kind of look back on that was part of God's plan for you, bringing you through all that stuff?
100%. God's hand is in everything. When I see the negative things that I've had in my life and in my business career, and you look back and go, oh, but if that didn't happen, I couldn't have been here and I wouldn't have met him. And so, and I think that rings true to anyone that you talk to. When you look at the negatives that you've had in your life, they've always turned into positives. There's always a plan behind it. And so, you got to have faith. You got to keep your head in the right direction. You always got to have a vision of where you're going with your career and with your path. And I think that's one of the things that I've always, really prided myself in is I've always had big vision, a vision of big things in my life. And I'm not stopping until I get to those points in my life, So
yeah, no, I love that about you. Even when we were connecting, when you were down here in Newport and we were talking about doing some real estate stuff together, you're like, okay, let's go. Like, let's go. Let's put a plan. Like, just, always on the grind. Absolutely. It's something I definitely admire about you, bro. It's pretty awesome.
Thank you, bud.
So you were saying that you went from the broker channel into the bank channel. You were grinding, you were getting on the phone, you were out producing everybody, youngest guy, no surprise there. What happens next?
Yeah. So what happens next, and I tell the story to a lot of young loan officers or anyone in sales, is that, from my hard work that I built over that 6 months of grinding on the phone. I mean, I hit the phones my whole career, but when I was at Chase for that 6 months, I went out of my way to like prove a point and get the ball rolling in the right direction. And what that did for me was it allowed me to leverage my next employer, which was Countrywide Home Loans at the time. I told them, I'm not coming over unless I get an assistant. And so they said, absolutely, we'll get you an assistant. And as soon as that happened, it allowed me to make even more calls because I had the leverage and I had the ability to have the paperwork be done by my assistant, letting me be on the phones more. And so smiling and dialing doesn't have to be forever and ever. It has to be as long as it takes for you to find points where you can leverage more opportunity, bring in, have more capital to be able to hire people, to be able to bring more people in. I think people, they forget that it's not like we're telling you or talking about this grind mentality, because I don't grind like I used to. I still do in certain instances, but I leverage, because of the efforts that I put in the past. I've leveraged that my whole career. So as I came from Chase, I worked for Countrywide. They were bought up by B of A. But for at that point, Bank of America was really competitive in jumbo loans, and this was like 2011. And I built a team around doing jumbo financing, and what that meant was, I was going to work with self-employed customers. I was going to work with really savvy customers that knew how to talk the talk. They were business owners. They were investors, entrepreneurs. And so I had to really know how to handle them, talk to them, and facilitate their loans, which required a bigger team. I had to grow my team at that point to 2 assistants, where one was just dedicated to kind of looking and reviewing tax returns. And because I saw that leverage that I utilized at Chase to go over to Countrywide, I continued that throughout my career at the banks. Before I left US Bank, I had the most assistants in the country. I had 4 assistants paid for by the bank because I just kept leveraging the volume and the energies that I was creating through my fundings to just have more support team. So I throughout my time at the banks, my whole focus was jumbo financing, and it really fared well because we were in a jumbo market anyways. But a lot of loan officers at the time, they were scared to go after that business because it required a different type of conversation. And obviously you had to have the acumen to deal with the documentation and the paperwork that came with doing those loans.
So it's funny you say that, because I was putting together a kind of a presentation yesterday, actually. And one of the things that I was talking about is just my time in the lending space. And I made this one particular slide, and I basically said, why did I outperform other people in my space? Because I'm not the best loan officer on the planet, that you don't have to be the best to win. And so I'm curious to know, could you talk about the acumen and stuff, and how you are working with these probably people with a significant net worth, right? These are, 3, 5, 10 million, these really millions and millions of dollar loans. And one of the things I think stops a lot of people, not just in lending, but also in the investing space, when people are getting into wholesale or they're getting into real estate investing, is they think they need to know everything. And I don't know. Honestly, when you talk about guidelines and stuff, I'm like, this is my go-to line. I'm like, I don't know. You got to ask Gene. I have no idea. Yeah. The thing is that I think people do business with people they like and that they trust. And it's not about being the most seasoned, being in the industry for the longest. It's not about any of those things. And I'm willing to bet you probably have a very similar experience. You probably know all the guidelines and all the things and a lot of those things. But what a lot of people don't know about lending is there's so many layers. When you talk about different bank programs, especially jumbo stuff, but even if it's not jumbo stuff, there's so many if-then scenarios. It's almost you need a specialist person to address that. And I love what you did, because when you talked about scaling, you said, look, I'm going to take this person and put them in charge of this time-consuming thing that I'm probably not even the best at. I'm going to do what I'm really good at, which is onboard clients, get their information, reassure them that we're going to take care of them, and probably work from a place of service.
That never has changed in my career. I was never good at guidelines. I was never good at income analysis. In fact, that wasn't my job, in my opinion. My job was to connect with customers and bring them on board. And I think a lot of times, young people starting out, whether it's in mortgage or real estate investing, they feel like they have to have all this knowledge and be able to snap answers back to a customer. A lot of times these clients and customers and sellers, investors aren't even asking those questions. They're just human beings trying to get through the day. And, at the end of the day, they want to know what you have available to offer them and if it benefits them. And so building rapport really quickly, just, talking to them as a normal human being, throwing in a cuss word if I have to, just because it feels like it's part of the conversation, talking about their children, what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish, and then sitting back and then presenting that deal later, like literally getting the information and creating a game plan. To this day, I'm never going to quote you a rate right out the gates and tell you how we're going to structure the loan, because it's not my job to do that. I want to sit back and look at how to properly present the offer, properly put together my customer's file. And I feel like I'm doing a disservice to anyone by feeling that I have to present quickly and have all these answers. It's just not possible. And in fact, it's counterintuitive when you look at some of the loan officers that have those big brains and they know the guidelines. They never do any business because they can't connect with people.
Right. Yes. Such a great point. Oh my gosh. It's such a great, and it's funny that you say that, man, because when I first got into lending, there was like two top performers in my office. And what I would do is I would just go like stand by their door and I would listen to them talk. Like, I didn't want to go in there and bother them. So I was just like, how are these guys pitching? And then this guy would pitch one way and this guy would pitch another way. And one of them would go on and he'd like price it out and he would have the conversation. And, he did well, he still does well, and they both do well. But I never found that something to work for me. For me, I'm like you, man. I'm like, look, I need to like get this information, take it back, like you said, put together a game plan, and then present it in like a nice, neat box. And I think the thing is that anybody starting, whether that's real in the loan business or investing, they need to have that same take. And this is actually how I scaled the mortgage company I was with. When I first got there, there was 5 guys, and when I left, I had a team of about 35, 40 guys working for me, and I scaled it in this exact way. I said, look, here is a tear sheet. Here's it's an app, but it's not a 1003. It's just like, some information about this person. Go get this basic information. And with this information, we can put together potential numbers. So it turns somebody who didn't know anything, just a person who could ask questions and articulate questions in a way. If they were to ask questions, we always just say like, look, I don't really know what the best program is for you. I just need to get a little bit of information, and then we can set up a call for later. This is the best way in both those scenarios, lending and in investing.
Well, it comes down to having a good mentor, someone that can help you, especially at the beginning, walk you through how to structure deals, how to sell the deal, how to connect with that person, right? My first 7 years in the broker world, I literally would get the data from the customer and bring it to an underwriter who would then be the one who talks about the way we're going to set this up. And those reps over the years allowed me to know that process it makes sense, because you can sit down, you can talk someone that's knows more than you about it, structure it the right way, discuss how to game plan it, and then when you come back to the customer, you have a proper game plan. So it's so important to have somebody to help you with that flow up front, right, and really guide you to that until you get comfortable. But even then, it's like, no one wants to be pitched on the first call. Just slow it down a notch. Let's bring it to a place where a consumer wants to be doing business, right? And that's being human beings and connecting, taking time, and presenting the offer that's going to benefit everyone involved.
Take me to, what things look like now. I know that you've recently moved to Tennessee and you're doing some stuff out there, and you got some new stuff happening. Talk to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for me, the jumbo space has served me well for so long. But what I realized was that Orange County in particular, where I was doing a lot of my business, California kind of broadly, was not transacting like the markets that I need to transact in, right? I need to see properties moving. I need to see houses turning over. And unfortunately, with the rates being as low as they were, it's caused homeowners to second guess buying that next home, because rates have more than doubled in the last 12 to 24 months. So I said to myself, where is a place that is profitable from a product perspective, which is doing Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA type of financing? Those have more commissions in them, if you will. Where are those being done, and where is their growth? And I landed on Nashville. And so I just moved out to Nashville about 60 days ago. I am now starting my own company called the Loan Pro. And we're out here just, meeting and greeting agents and dealing with the market. I mean, the market, like I said, is at the beginning of the conversation, it's a super tough market. In fact, I would tell you it's harder and more difficult than 2008 because in 2008, there was still a lot of opportunity for refi and there was still a lot of demand. The problem was that the demand wasn't being facilitated because banks were closing down and banks weren't lending. Now it's the opposite. There's just not demand from the consumer. No one wants to refi. No one wants to buy. Now, I do believe that's going to change in the next 6 months, and I'm going to be ready to be able to get back into that. I do think rates are going to come down in the next 6 months, and we're going to be back at gangbusters because there's a lot of home buyers out there. Household formations are continuing every day. There's a pent up demand that I think you drop 1%, 2% on rates, it's gonna blow the top off of this, and I think there's gonna be a lot of opportunity. So, but I came out to Nashville because of a lot of reasons. I mean, there's no state income taxes. Also, as you know, part being an investor in real estate, I want to be in a place where I can transact without breaking the bank. Frankly, in California, you're starting an investment at $1 million, $1.2 million, and it takes a lot of capital, a lot of resources. And in Tennessee, you could buy great homes for $200,000 and flip them and make 50 grand, 100 grand on these deals. And so for me, it was, where am I going to transact more in the mortgage space? Where can I get my hands really dirty in the real estate business? And that led me to Nashville. Not to mention, it's conservative and all the values, and a lot of church followers, and it's good living out here. We love it.
So you guys are definitely enjoying it. So what is the median price point where you're at now versus Orange County?
So Nashville, where I'm at, is actually pretty expensive still. So the median household price is right around $600,000. But there's a lot of jumbo financing around here, and I plan on tapping into that and working with these agents. But again, it's very, like I said, it's I'm in a new market. I'm meeting agents, so it's a slow process. It's going to take time to build those relationships. But the outside of Nashville, in outlying cities, I mean, you're talking 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. And so these are great opportunities for financing. There's lots of military bases up here for VA financing. And, from an investment standpoint, I mean, I don't think that I'm so super bullish on Nashville and Tennessee as a whole. I think that this state's going to continue to drive a lot of people to relocate out here. And I think from an investment standpoint, it's probably one of the better spots to be in.
So what are rates at right now? Just, ballpark, conventional, top tier, just ballpark.
Yeah. Top tier. You're looking at the mid sevens right now on a 30-year fix. So it hurts. These same clients, these same clients were sub 3%, just 2 years ago. So you're talking, it's more than doubled their interest rate. And not to mention, values are continuing to go up. So people they're getting hit both ways. Their payments are going up because the values are going up, and they're going up because of the interest rates. Not to mention, everyone's getting, hounded by inflation and a high cost of living. And so it's just caused a real stagnation in the marketplace that we think, I hope will change. I think we're seeing inflation numbers drop. I think that the Fed's going to have to make some moves here, and I believe that rates are going to drop, I think, pretty dramatically. I think, mark my words, I think in the next 6 months, we're going to see some 4% money again. And I think it's going to create a real frenzy, if you will, on the marketplace again. I think values are going to continue to increase. So if you're a first-time home buyer out there and you're thinking that, you want to wait and be on the sidelines, the time is not to wait. You need to get in the market now, because they say it's about the time on the market that creates that wealth in your life. And so, there's no better place to invest than real estate. And so get in while you can. Take a high interest rate now and refinance it later. So, and a lot of lenders will refinance those loans at no cost. We certainly will when the time comes.
Yeah. And what do you think the go number is? I mean, I know that if we're at 7.5 now, like, what do you think the number is where rates hit that you start seeing more properties, come on the market?
What I found in my career with rates fluctuating over the last 22 years it's not so much about what the actual rate is. It's about the hype in the media and the hype within the conversations within your peer groups. Because at the end of the day, as soon as everyone gets permission from the media and their friends that it's time to buy because rates are low, that's when we'll start seeing it. So there's not going to be this magic number. I do think 1 percentage point, we're going to start seeing some things happen. But, even when we start, clearly seeing rates are dropping, because we haven't seen that, rates have just been moving higher. When we clearly see that the path of rates are dropping, we're going to start seeing a frenzy coming back. And I think it's going to get home buyers frustrated because they're waiting on the sidelines thinking there's going to be a crash when it's actually going to be the opposite.
Yeah. And the thing is that you and I can speak from the experience where, there was a time where, property go on the market, and before, one day on the market, it'd have 20 offers, 20 over asking price. And that was a really frustrating time too, because you'd be out writing all these pre-approvals and you'd be trying to, help your buyers get into a property, and they'd be writing offers and offers and offers. And it was just almost impossible to get somebody into a property.
The interest rate really is just a psychological thing for most customers, to be honest with you. It has nothing to do with their affordability. I mean, it does, right? I mean, let me back that up. It does have to do with affordability, because that payment is going to determine what you're spending every month and so forth. But what people don't realize is that 1% drop in interest rate doesn't change the world. That's maybe a couple dinners out that month.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not like your payment cuts in half. And so people really just don't understand that interest rates are not what's driving the consumer to buy. It's about just the mental idea. I think that mentally the consumer doesn't understand that the first time home buyers is like, how did we have 2.875 money literally 2 years ago, and now we're at 7.875 money? It's like, everyone's minds are blown. They're just waiting on the sidelines. I think that's a bad move. I think the time is now to buy, refinance when the rates come down, and you're going to see that extra that you paid for every month for those 6 months to 12 months is going to be several $1,000s, and your house will have already appreciated that much.
Yeah, I think that's really good good advice. So it's funny because we talked a little bit about just kind of like our our religion, and how being a Christian and being in now in Tennessee in a conservative state. I'm in SoCal, so it's a little bit. Actually, I'm in Orange County, so a lot of people here are conservative. So, but how has your religion played? How's it played a part in your business? I know we talked about this a little bit, but what do you like, just in terms of the past, and then maybe what does it look like going forward for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you hit the bottom, like 2008 was just the bottom of just what I thought was my life, right? I mean, the high of getting married, but I lost everything. And, the only thing that I could turn to was Jesus. I had to have him by my side to get me through that. And leaning on him and just staying with him, day in, day out, allowed me to rise like a phoenix from the ashes, and just staying focused. And so, I've always been pretty religious. I think my faith really drove me to Tennessee. I felt called by God to make a move to Tennessee, and I continue to follow that path. And things just opened up. Like, it's amazing what God puts in place for you when you're on the right path. Like, doors just open, like you meet the right people. And I see that in my day every day. And I thank my Creator for that. I know that that's his hand in the mix, and he's in charge of this all. And I sit back and I look at awe sometimes how things unfold. But yeah, I mean, for sure, having faith has been a total way to overcome just even this tough market that we're in right now.
Yeah, and it's funny, man, because I find that like when we pray and we ask for things, at least this has been my experience, where when we pray and we ask for things and we're walking around with our eyes open and we're expecting Christ to show himself, it usually shows up in the form for me as like another Christian man in my space, like giving me some direction or giving me some sort of opportunity or whatever. I mean, a couple of times in my life, I've had that exact thing happen. I told you in 2015 when we went through all of our stuff, like I had a really good friend of mine, Christian dude, owns a company called NutriShop. Actually, you probably heard of it. They're a big supplement store. Christian dude, you known him forever. Good dude. But he called me and he's like, "Hey man, I noticed you're taking pictures of your kids. Your pictures look really good. Do you want to come take some pictures of my fitness models?" And I'm like, "Bro, like I don't know anything about like taking pictures of models, dude. Like I'm literally just taking pictures of my kid." And what he didn't know at the time is, I mean, he wasn't paying me a lot, but what he didn't know is that little bit of money carried me, man. It helped me pay my groceries. I mean, our grocery budget was $100 a week. That was it. I had $100 for 1 week of groceries. And, you know, like I often got a joke about it, although it's not funny. I say like, I tried to get food stamps, but I think I only qualified for like milk. And I didn't even know how to get them. So I was like, forget it. Like this is, but I needed that money. And so it's funny because a lot of non-believers, they try to pin like not believing on not being able to see and not being able to have like some sort of physical like thing or identity.
I can't see God, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But when you start connecting the dots, man, especially like in hindsight, like, right, like this dude came to me and that actually led me, that being in that space led me to the mortgage company, another Christian dude who offered me a job at his company, served the Christian community. So it's like those things, it's like it's undeniable for me that God's real and that he comes to me and speaks to me through other guys.
I've been seeing that. I've been seeing that happen with this move to Nashville, the people that I've connected with and the people that I'm meeting and just the doors that are opening. I couldn't do it on my own. You know, literally it's like what unfolds is supernatural a lot of times. You know, how did I get, you know, you happen to be in the space that I'm in and just connecting the dots is wild. And quick story. So right before I'm getting married, you know, I'm losing everything. I have no income coming in at all. And, you know, God's, you know, on my side, he's watching over me. He puts his deal in front of me. And at the time there was these loans called negatively amortized loans, and they were great for jumbo customers. And I happened to pull this deal. It was a $3 million deal. And the customer needed this negatively amortized loan. And I happened to submit the file to a investor that I happen to have my brother's best friend work there. And he basically massaged the deal to get it to work. And in that deal, I made 50 grand on one deal. I hadn't made money for 6 months. I made 50 grand on one deal. It funded right before my wedding. And it carried me for the time that I got up and running with Chase and didn't have any commissions coming in. So there's 50 stories like that I can tell you that, like, literally, if I, you know, being a believer, I know that's God's hand.
Yeah, I love that. I know I got the same deal, man. Deals funding or certain things happening. Yeah, it's undeniable, man. Well, here's the thing, man. So we're just about out of time, but I'd love to just get your thoughts on, you know, anybody who is maybe wanting to get into either real estate investing or the mortgage space. Like what would you tell like the, you know, 20-year-old version, you know, the 20-year-old JP? Like what advice would you give that person coming into this space?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was 20 years old, it was like I was consuming, you know, for me, I didn't get an education in the classroom. I was educating myself with tapes, books, webinars, you know, all that. Now there wasn't webinars back when I was a kid, but, you know, now there's webinars, there's YouTube, there's such great content. You've got great content. I took your course. Your course is great. There's lots of great information on there. And I think the key for 20-year-olds is like, look, figure out something that you like to do and go deep in it. Learn about it. Consume the content. Follow the right people. Pick up the phone and call Johnny and be like, look, I want to learn from you. And guys like us, like I get those phone calls all the time. And actually, I don't get them all the time. But when I do, because I don't get them very often, that person has the balls and the willingness to make things happen and pick up the phone and be nervous about that phone call. I'm willing to give them time and energy. So I would tell you, just, you know, hone in on one thing, focus your time and energy with learning about it, find a mentor, find a coach. So huge. I still see a coach every week. I'm part of masterminds. I spend lots of money on coaching, and I think that it's huge. I think it's I buy online courses all the time. I mean, in every different discipline, I want to learn about marketing and sales, and so I would just say, just consume. Don't consume bullshit on Instagram. Consume things that are going to make you some money and get you ahead in your career.
So good, man. I'm the exact same way. The one thing that I wish I would have done when I was younger was find a mentor. That is like, if I would knew what I know now, bro, oh my gosh, life would be so different. That was the one thing. It's like, when you're trying to do something and you don't have anyone to go to, or you're not modeling anybody, you're just kind of like floating, you're trying to figure it out. And I think a lot of people get hung up when they talk about buying, either courses or mentors, and they're expensive. It costs a lot of money, but what it does is it shortens the learning curve. So it's like, dude, I'm going to struggle with this for 12 months, or I'm going to learn it in 12 minutes. I'm going to get the answer now.
And so that's paychecks coming in, right? Get those checks to pay for all it, for sure. I mean, dude, my whole life I've always been a big believer in courses, and Tony Robbins. I've gone to all his stuff, and Todd Duncan.
Have you done the Firewalk? Have you done the Firewalk? Have you done that?
Yeah, I don't know if you've been to those, but those are like 18-hour days, and me and my wife, we were done. So we went up to dinner that night. we didn't need to do the Firewalk, but me and my wife went. It was incredible. We had a great time. We learned a lot. It's a fun event to be there. He's actually doing them live again just now. He's got one in Dallas coming up, so I highly recommend that.
Cool, brother. Well, thank you for your time. If somebody wants to reach out and get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you, bro?
Just reach out to me on my cell phone. You could hit me up at 714-504-9730, or follow me at The Loan Pro.
Awesome. And what's your website, bro?
www.theloanpro.com.
My dude. Awesome, brother. Well, listen, I appreciate it. God bless you. God bless your family. This was awesome.